Chapter 18. So, which one is a lie? Said Mrs. Jarman. That is so easy, miss, said one of the boys. We're supposed to learn from you, not the other way round. The third statement is a lie. Mrs. Jarman grins. I wouldn't be much of a teacher if I didn't listen to you lot now and again. Even if what I'm learning is that young people today have no idea about what constitutes a fashion crime, she stares intently at the boy. You're aware that your trousers are a good 3 inches above your shoes, aren't you? He grins back at her. It's called style, miss. We could give you some lessons if you like. Mrs. Jarman shakes her head. No, thank you. I think I'll cope without that particular privilege. Okay, which of the two remaining statements is a lie? The first one, calls Aisha. Nobody can afford to go to South America every year. The kind of holiday costs so much money. So does that mean that you've got 5 kids then, miss? Shouts someone else. Tally shuddered. It's bad enough having to share a house with Nell. The idea of 4 brothers and sisters is absolutely terrible. Mrs. Jarman shakes her head. Nope. I don't have any children, or nor do I have a dog, which is why I can afford to go on holiday, and that is why I am the winner of that round. So, who wants to go next? All around the circle, hands are thrust up into the air. Mrs. Jarman scans the class and then points to Luke. Off you go. Off you go then, 2 truths and a lie. Luke grins at Lucy and runs his hand through his hair. Okay, first of all, I'm unbeatable at playing Fortnite, and if any of you losers want to take me on, then be warned, you're going down. Laughter ripples around the circle like a Mexican wave, only stopping when it reaches Tally. Well, that's a lie for starters, because I completely annihilated you when we played last night, interrupts Amit, causing another laugh. My second statement is that Port Harbour Football Club have asked me to try out for their junior league. Luke continues looking smugly at Amit, who murmurs something under his breath. And the third statement is that I think every person in this room is normal and great. And he sees this, his eyes catch on to Tally, and his mouth turns up at the corners, reminding him of a face that Nell sometimes makes. and that mum is called Smarmy. The buzzing intensifies like 1,000 angry wasps have evaded her head. I have very much hoped that I'm not going to have to cause to remove you from the room again, young man, says Mrs. Jarman, giving Luke an intense stare. He looks back at her and raises his shoulders, his face looking puzzled. No, miss, I just did what you said to do. I've told 2 truths and a lie. Mrs. Jarman looks unconvinced, and Tally crosses her fingers, hoping that she'll send Luke out now. Well, let's give you the benefit of the doubt, shall we? Who can guess Luke's lie? The room goes quiet. Everyone knows which one is a lie, but nobody wants to get into trouble by saying it. Everyone except Mrs. Jarman saw the look that he gave Tally, which is always what happens because kids like Luke are masters at avoiding the teacher's gaze. Tally knows that. Come on, prompts the drama teacher. Someone has to guess. I still think he lied about Fortnite, mutters Amit. I've got a way better rank than him. Luke grins and shakes his head. Wrong. In that case, you'd lied about thinking everybody in this room is normal, says Alexandra, rolling her eyes, which is a pretty nasty lie. I agree, says Lucy quietly. It's just mean and stupid. Is that the lie? Asks Mrs. Jarman quietly, although the warning in her voice is loud and clear. Luke gives her the best surprised look. No, miss. The lie is that I've been asked to try out for Port Harbour Football Club. I haven't been asked to try out for Port Harbour Football Club. I've been asked to try out for Rovers. And of course, I think everybody in this room is normal. He grins and looks straight at Tally. Why shouldn't I think that? I think that because you and I need to have perhaps you and I need to have a little chat, starts Mrs. Jarman. Before she can say anything else, there's a knock at the door and another teacher walks in. Can I just have a quick word? He asks, beckoning to Mrs. Jarman. The head needs some information on data from last year, and apparently he needs it yesterday. Mrs. Jarman nods. You can all read through the scene 1 of our new play, she tells them. We'll be working on it next lesson. Alexandra, can you hand out the books, please? And then she retreats to her desk with the other teacher and starts to talk animatedly about something, her hands flying all over the place like Tally's hands do when she particularly is excited about something. The words on the page of the script don't have any sense, even when Tally reads them through for the 3rd time. So she gives up and instead pulls a piece of paper out of her notebook, writing down a new top tip for Mrs. Jarman and sneak it into the box at the end of the lesson. Nobody notices her, which isn't a surprise because what she's already learned about year 7 is that the only time anyone actually sees her is when Luke says something cruel. The rest of the time she's invisible. The first lesson of the day is history. As Tally turns the corner, she sees the girls gathered in a group of her. When she can hear them whispering and phrases like, what if she tells, and can you keep a secret, float down the corridor, then Layla sees her coming and flashes her a quick smile. Are you okay? She asks, and Tally gets closer. Did you go to the canteen yesterday yourself? I looked for you when we got down there, but I couldn't see you anywhere. Tally shakes her head. No, I ended up doing something else. Why didn't you come and sit with us in drama? Said Aisha. We were saving you a space. Lucy puts her arm around Tally's shoulders and pulls her into the group. We have to look out for each other, remember? She says. Have each other's backs. We can't let anything get in the way of us being friends. Perhaps Tally has got it wrong. Maybe they weren't all trying to avoid her. Maybe she's misunderstood the situation yesterday when it seemed like they wanted her to go. These girls have been her friends forever after all, and Lucy is right. They all made a promise to be there for each other. The voice is in her head before she can stop it. Nell's voice, the one that tells her that she's broken, is now reminding her that her so-called friends weren't really there for her when Luke was calling her a weirdo. They should have stopped him, but none of them said a single word. She blinks hard and tries to focus, pushing Nell away. They are her friends. There's no way that they just abandon her. Tally must have made a mistake. It wouldn't be exactly the first time. I'm sorry, Tally says, giving them all the best smile. I should have come and sat with you, but I had a headache, and I just needed to be on my own for a bit. It's not a lie, not really. The buzzing sensation isn't exactly the same as a headache, but it still makes Tally feel like her brain is about to explode. That's why she put in a second tip in Mrs. Jarman's top tip box. Top tip number 2. Every school should have a quiet place where kids can go where they need to be on their own. Well, let's sit down together, says Layla, linking arms with Tally. I hope Mr. King isn't going to show us another PowerPoint presentation today. But when they get inside and sit down at their desk, Mr. King is not standing at the front, ready to talk to them through 500 slides on medieval Britain. Instead, he is rooting through the desk drawer with a frown on his face. He straightens up as the last pupil enters the room and turns to the face of the class looking puzzled. Has anyone seen a piece of paper with lots of questions on it? He asks them. I could have sworn that I left it in the drawer, but it's nowhere to be found. Everyone shakes their head. Was it important? Asks the girl in front of the room, and Mr. King nods. It has the questions of the quiz I was telling you about last lesson, he explains. The one that helps me to predict your history grade for the term. Does that mean that we won't have to sit a test? Calls Amit. Maybe we should tell you what the grade we think we deserve, and you can just put that on our reports. I definitely deserve an A star, shouts Jasmine. My mum said that she'd give me £10 every grade above a B that I got in my report. Mr. King frowns as other voices call out, contributing their own thoughts about the grade that they should be getting. I'm not sure that I've seen any work worthy of an A star from this class, he tells them, once the noises die down. And as for getting money for good grades, well, he looks over at Jasmine, I'd rather think that education itself should be the reward. This earns him a big laugh from the back row. Tally isn't listening though. Instead, she is remembering what happened yesterday lunchtime in this very room. The way that Luke told her to go and find some other weird friends to hang out with, as if her own group of friends weren't right there in front of her. Well, it's a mystery to me because I'm sure it was there yesterday morning, continues Mr. King. And it's a complete pain because now I'm going to have to print out another copy, which means that we can't do the test until next lesson. He frowns and then starts writing on the blackboard. On the whiteboard, Tally glances round. Across the aisle, Luke is staring at her and her eyes swing past him. He mouths a word to her. Silently, but somehow she's still managing to get the attention of the other people around him so that they can all see her face as he narrows his eyes and calls her the word that she hates the most in the world. Did you see the test, Luke? Her voice rings out clearly in the quiet room. When you were looking in Mr. King's desk drawer, several things started to happen. Layla groans quietly and shifts in her seat, moving closer to Jasmine, away from Tally. Luke's face flushes a furious red and he rises to his seat, looming menacingly across the aisle. The kids at the back row start to make a jeering sound that in Tally's ears sound like people at a football match. And at the front of the room, Mr. King spins round and fixes them with a fierce look. That's quite enough, he bellows, making Tally squirm in her seat. The next person to utter a single sound is going to be in detention for the rest of the term. The room falls into silence, but it isn't still or peaceful silence. Instead, there's a fizz of energy crackling in the air, and Tally wonders if there was about to be a storm. Would you like to repeat that last sentence, Mr. King? Mr. King is staring right at her. Tally clamps her mouth shut. He literally just said that the next person to make a sound will get her detention, and if there was a trick, then she isn't going to fall for it. Did you say that Luke was looking at my desk drawer? Asked the teacher. Is that what I heard you say? Tally nods, because he didn't say anything about the next person who moves their head getting detention. This is complete and utter, starts Luke. I'll stop you there, interrupts Mr. King, holding his hand. Before you get yourself into even more trouble, he turns his back to Tally. And did you see Luke taking the test paper? Tally hesitated, and Mr. King nods at her. Hold on 1 second. He beckons to Luke to join him by the door, and the rest of the class start to murmur quietly. Just shut up, Lucy hisses to Tally, turning around from the row in the front. I don't know what you said I don't know why you've just said that, but you need to shut up. Okay, if you ever want to be friends with us again. Tally, will you join us? Called Mr. King. And the rest of you turn to page 56, and if I hear one peep out of you, then you can all expect to be doing history homework in every spare moment of every day for the rest of the year. He leads Tally and Luke out into the corridor, much to the disappointment of the rest of the class. I don't know what she's on about, explodes Luke, the second that the door closes behind her. She hates me, and she's always trying to get me into trouble. Is that true? Asked Mr. King, looking at Tally. Tally pauses. I'm not always trying to get him into trouble, she says slowly, but I do hate him. I do hate him a bit because he always says unkind things about me, and I don't like it. But did you see Luke taking the test out of my desk? Mr. King's face seems furious. This is really important, Tally. You need to tell the truth. Tally looks down at the ground and scuffs her shoe on the floor. Mr. King is being very demanding right now, and suddenly she doesn't think she can say anything, not while he's scowling like that. But then she remembers how Layla told her to shut up. There's actually been too much shutting up around here already. If they hadn't all shut up when Luke called her a weirdo, then none of this would have happened. Sometimes you need to answer the question, even if you think it's almost possible to make the words come out of your mouth. If the test was on the piece of yellow paper, then yes. He was looking at it yesterday during lunchtime, she says, still looking at her feet. She's not doing anything wrong. She's doing exactly what Mr. King is asking her to do. She's telling the truth. Are you seriously going to accuse me just because Weirdo Adams thinks she saw me doing something? Wails Luke. Be quiet, snaps Mr. King, but Tally has had enough. It's in his bag, she says, raising her hand and looking right at Luke. He picked it up and stuffed it inside his bag right before he told me to do everyone a favour and disappear. Luke's face has gone pale and he stops shouting. I bet it's still in there, she asks, trying to be helpful. Mr. King turns to Luke and reaches out his arm. We can do this in two ways, he says. You can either consent to a bag search here or come with me to the head's office and we can take it from there, your choice. Tally smiles. She doesn't mean to, but she can't help it. Mr. King clearly doesn't understand the rules of choosing any better than Nell does, but on the options are almost supposed to be good, but Luke choices are most terrible, and she is glad because he is a terrible person, and terrible people don't often get caught in Tally's experience. Luke scowls and thrusts his bag to Mr. King. I prefer for you to remove the test for me, says the teacher. If you would, he turns to face Tally. You can go back into class, he tells her. And I think Luke would appreciate if you didn't speak about what has just happened with anyone else for the time being. Tally nods, opens the classroom door, stepping inside and then closing it quietly behind her. Then she turns to face the room and the 25 pairs of eyes who are staring back at her accusingly. There is no need for Mr. King to tell her not to talk about it. They already know, from the looks on their faces. They are not impressed.